Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined with Chloe. She is a mortgage broker, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about mortgages and finance. Chloe, how has the income uncertainty affected the ability to get mortgages?
So definitely has an impact on applications for clients, especially those that were affected by COVID, right? So they're looking at the big picture. Have they been on CERB? Are they back to work? Did they do any mortgage deferrals? Has their income stopped completely or has it been reduced? So there's a lot that they are actually looking at to determine if they will finance a deal or not. There are self-employed people that are actually hit the hardest. And so what they're doing now, which is a little bit newer, is that they're allowing us to use a 3-year average for their income if their 2020 income was actually reduced or stopped or lower than previous years. So normally it's a 2-year average. Now they're going to be allowing us in some cases to do a 3-year average. So there are definitely some changes in how you will get a mortgage.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And what have you been seeing on the ground as it relates to the income uncertainty? Like, what are some of the problems people are facing?
So there's an instance where like the service industry, right? That's a huge industry that's been taking the biggest hit. So restaurant owners, hairdressers, stuff like that, right? So essentially what's happening is if they purchased prior to the restrictions or the lockdowns, and they qualified then, if they're not back at work by the time the house closes, they could potentially have to close privately or B deals, or if the spouse has enough income to actually carry through the deal, then they're fine. But there's a lot that comes into play with these mortgages when people especially purchase prior to any of these lockdowns and if they're not back at work.
So you mentioned the mortgage deferral program
Mhm.
that was obviously quite active during the pandemic. A lot of people took advantage of it. How does that impact the application? Do lenders look poorly on those things if they're back to paying their mortgage, their monthly payments? Are they in the clear?
So it's not that it's looked at in a negative way, but there are a few things to keep in mind. So first thing is that they are reported, the lenders report these deferrals to the credit bureau. Not all lenders, but some do. So that's something definitely to keep in mind. They don't extend the term. So if somebody, for instance, took a 6-month deferral, your term is not, or your maturity date is not extended that 6 months. You still renew at the same time. So now all the interest and payments that you have not made are now added to the top. And if you want to refinance, well, now they're looking, if you've deferred, are you back to work? Can you now make these payments on a higher mortgage if you want to refinance? So they're a little stricter with people who want to refinance that had actually done a deferral.
Yeah, fair enough. And they're just making sure that income isn't going to be halted again, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there anything else people should be aware of when it comes to uncertainty, and how they can mitigate the risks when it comes to trying to get a mortgage?
Yeah, so actually, if they're not working right now and they're on CERB, as long as there's a return to work date, we can actually use their income. So there is some good in there that they're taking different precautions to sort of help these clients get their mortgage, right? Unfortunately, if they're not back to work, unless there's a cosigner or some creative way to sort of make the deal work, we can't use that income. So definitely using a mortgage broker is important because now we can be creative in how we get this deal done, whether it's, like I said, closing with a private lender, closing with a B lender. Yes, the rate might be a bit higher. Yes, there might be a fee, but at the end of the day, we need to close the deal. So some creativity might have to happen in terms of like thinking outside of the box and getting cosigners or more down payment, et cetera.
When it comes to those small businesses, the businesses that got hit the hardest, like restaurants and other service providers that aren't essential, and their incomes obviously got destroyed when it comes to their average business income. What has their position been like? How have they been able to get mortgages after that?
Well, so they're technically self-employed. So essentially what happens now is the lenders are allowing us to use a 3-year average, right? So for example, we're in 2021, they're gonna file their 2020 taxes. So maybe we use 2018, 19, and 20 and use some sort of an average over 3 years as opposed to 2. This will obviously help because, their income was affected in 2020. So it could either increase the income or keep it at a level that it needed to be at if COVID didn't happen in 2020. So that's definitely something that they're looking at and implementing.
So that's interesting. So they use the last 3 before the pandemic, or is that including the pandemic year?
Whatever the last 3, or traditionally it's 2 years, but in this case, whatever the last 3 filed tax years are. So, if they're purchasing in January of 2021, February, March, well, the taxes for self-employed is not due till June. So in that instance, they might be fine, but they are actually looking at 2020 regardless, because they want to make sure that you're currently working, that you can still make those payments. They have to be comfortable with the type of risk that they're taking with these types of mortgages.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for giving us a little bit of insight as to how the uncertainty from the pandemic and just income uncertainty in general is addressed on the financing front. Thanks so much for joining us today, Chloe, on Ask an Expert. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.